Hello and welcome to TechSpert Weekly, the weekly tech news show that really should have been killed at birth and yet somehow has survived 3 British Prime Ministers, 2 reigning monarchs, and possibly soon a full-on nuclear war as well. Fun times, kiddies. Can't wait to report on the latest smartphones live from a concrete bunker somewhere in f***ing Norfolk. And coming up in this week's show, more big-ass phones, what are launching soon, including the Xiaomi 13 Pro and some bendy ones. Prick of the week. Oh god, it's fucking Elon again. Don't you die on me, Mr. Wangsock. Don't you dare die on me, you son of a bitch. TechSpert Weekly. Right, so, well, there's been bollocks all tech launches this week, or much of interest at all happening, really, to be honest, which is obviously ideal when you've got 15 minutes of a terrible news show to fill. The most exciting tech shenanigans was possibly the specs of the upcoming Xiaomi 13 Pro flagship phone being leaked on Twitter by top leaky man Yogi Bear. And even then, not exactly too many shocks and surprises packed in there. Quite a few of those shiny bits have been ported directly across from the Xiaomi 12 Pro. So for instance, the 6.7-inch AMOLED display will once again serve up crisp 2K visuals and LTPO tech to reach super low as well as super high refresh rates. But this time it will apparently be a brand new Samsung E6 panel, which is said to be super bright compared with many rivals. If it's so bright that it can actually give you a tan while you're using it, then that is one feature I would 100% be on board with. The Xiaomi 13 Pro will likely be the first smartphone to come packing Qualcomm's fresh new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset, which will be officially launching in under 2 weeks over in Hawaii. And yes, because I am super committed and dedicated to delivering you lovely buggers the tastiest, freshest tech news, I will indeed be making the long, arduous journey to the Snapdragon Summit to cover all of that chipset shenanigans as it happens. And if it just happens to be time for a pint or two of rum while I'm sat there in my best budgie smugglers on the beach and letting my albino-like skin turn an angry red colour under that Hawaiian sun, well, I guess that'll be a bonus. The Xiaomi 13 Pro will naturally come packing the latest Android 13 OS with MIUI slapped on top, and you'll get a 4800 mAh battery, which is slightly bigger than the Xiaomi 12 Pro's 4600 mAh effort. And once you factor in the assumed efficiency improvements that you should get from that Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset, the battery life should be pretty decent. And while the recent Xiaomi 12T Pro boasted a super posh 200 meg camera sensor, the Xiaomi 13 Pro will apparently use the same 50 meg Sony IMX989 sensor that Xiaomi slapped into the Chinese-only 12S Ultra phone. Now, the IMX989 was the very first 1-inch camera sensor designed specifically for smartphones. I never got a chance to try out the Xiaomi 12S Ultra myself, but everyone I've spoken to who has used it said it is an absolutely brilliant bit of camera tech, gorgeous looking photos day or night, especially at night because that sensor is buggering bastardy massive. And you'll also get a 50 meg ultra-wide angle shooter and 50 meg telephoto lens. That is, if these specs are accurate and Yogi hasn't just completely shit the bed or whatever. And you can expect the Xiaomi 13 Pro to launch in China around December time, shortly after that 8 Gen 2 is announced, and then hopefully it'll hit the UK early 2023. And there's also been some hot gossip this week in the wonderful world of foldable phones, as apparently Oppo will be launching 2 of the buggers before the end of the year. First up, there's the Oppo Find N2, which seems to be a gentle upgrade of last year's Oppo Find N. This 2022 model will apparently be powered by Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, just like that other big bendy blower, Samsung's Galaxy Fold 4. Leaks say that the Find N2 will also be slimmer and lighter than the original Find N, which is just as bloody well, because the original was an absolute f***ing brick. Seriously, drop this thing on your foot and you won't just lose a toe, you'll end up with a pirate-style peg leg, and you'll likely cause a minor earthquake to boot. Besides that though, it basically sounds like the same specs as before, so that 5.5-inch external display could get a refresh rate upgrade from 60Hz up to 120Hz to match the internal display. And apparently the battery could be upgraded as well from 4500 mAh to 4520 mAh. Absolutely thrilling stuff. It's actually physically impossible for me to stand up right now, that's how excited I am. However, the big rumour is that the Find N2 will apparently be joined this year by a second, more compact foldable handset rocking a similar design to the Samsung Galaxy flip phones and Motorola's Razr reboots. There's no real actual news on this smaller bendy phone so far, however, and don't get too excited because even if it does exist, that doesn't mean it'll launch outside of China. After all, the original Oppo Find N never actually made it to these shores. The only thing that hit our shores in 2022 was a disturbing amount of our own raw sewage, which sums up the year pretty nicely. And that's basically it as far as the tech news goes this week. I mean, naturally, there's been more shithousery in the glorious world of imbecilic man-child and semi-demented puppet Elon Musk. First, he was going to charge Twitter's blue tick brigade $20 a month for the privilege of having that little tick next to their name. And then, about 24 hours later, after arguing with Stephen King of all people, he knocked it down to $8 a month while ranting that the current lords and peasant system is bullshit. And his solution to this is apparently to charge the so-called peasants almost $100 a year for a little tick of their own. I mean, does he even understand what the point of the blue tick is? Or how things in general work? I feel like I'm going f***ing mental. Like, I've had far too much Johnny Walker, or possibly not enough. I reckon it's probably the latter. Anyway, that's it. That's a full week of tech shenanigans, and I don't know about you kiddies, but I need a cold shower to calm the down after all that excitement. But no time, sadly, as off we to the part of the show that almost makes you wish you were watching Mrs. Brown's Boys on repeat while tied to a chair with a ball gag stuffed in your mouth so you can't scream or even vomit. It's viewer comments. Viewer comments. So let's start this week with Richard. Hello Richard, who says, a 2-week holiday from Techspert Weekly. Thank goodness it was just that. I was worried you had finally sobered up and come to your senses. I did actually sober up once back in 1996, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. I started quoting poetry and acting on like a right twat. Ethan Linnett says, hey Uncle Spurt, what would you rather watch, Jimmy Fallon or James Corden? I mean, that's almost like asking, would I rather be kicked in the shin really hard or have a sledgehammer repeatedly driven into my ballsack until basically the boys resembled nothing but dust? I'm not exactly a fan of Jimmy Fallon, but compared with James boy Corden, he's essentially the Jesus of televisual entertainment. Next, Jason McMeekin says, hey part-timer, cheeky get, when do you think you'll get the Redmi Note 12 range in? Well, there's always a bit of a gap between this stuff launching in China and then finally making its way over to the West, but hopefully the Redmi Note 12 series will launch in the UK around sort of January time, when sunlight is but a distant memory, something that children talk about in hushed tones in the playground like it's some kind of fairy tale. In fact, I guarantee it'll be January because I'll be curled up under the duvet nursing killer hangovers left over from Christmas and New Year, avoiding the world in general, when all of a sudden there'll be a rat-a-tat-tat at the door, and who it'll be Mr. Postman with 3 big new shiny smartphones for me to pull out of the box and bang on about. And so the smartphone circle of life will continue on and on and on until eventually this rotten, pasty sack of meat that I call a body just gives up and I can rest in bloody peace. A little bit of happy Friday afternoon cheer for you all. You're welcome. Next up, Plowy says, I was going to get the Mi 11 Pro in March when my phone contract finishes, but I'm now going to get the Note 12 Explorer. I'm a bit nervous as to what Xiaomi has sacrificed to get the price this low. Well, we don't actually know the price just yet, but you guaranteed it will be pretty affordable stuff. And I mean, to be fair, Xiaomi doesn't usually make sacrifices when it comes to the hardware. The software side of things, you know, their updates aren't quite as frequent or as reliable as you'll get from the likes of Samsung and Google. But certainly on the hardware front, Xiaomi usually absolutely kills it with those Redmi phones. So yeah, I won't worry too much. Next up, really sorry, I'm gonna completely f*** up the pronunciation of this name and then look like the biggest bellend in existence. Oluwadumile, hopefully that's not absolutely mauled, says, where do you get your manga wallpapers? Well, buddy, have I got the little jingle for you? Roll it. wall.alphacoders.com, wall.alphacoders.com. That's where my wallpapers come from, wall.alphacoders.com. Hello Community says, make Ket large again. Yes, thank you. I mean, forget all these protests about, you know, global warming, how we're wrecking the planet, you know, the cost of living crisis, yada, yada, yada. This is the important shit right here. Our Ket is at risk. I mean, what in the living is this? I'll tell you what this is. It's a blatant attack on our civil rights, and I won't stand for it. I mean, soon our chocolate balls are going to be the size of Cadbury's celebrations. You have to have about 20 of them with your cup of tea. You know, what the bollocks. Utter bollocks. Sahan says, bought the Pixel 7 Pro on launch day and the software and camera experience has been amazing. However, the battery life isn't great and the phone gets warm too often, even with slight gaming and especially when charging. Okay, so my Pixel 7 and 7 Pro review went live just a couple of days ago. Definitely, they can get a little bit toasty at times, even as you say, when you're not particularly pushing them. Haven't noticed them warming up during wireless charging, but they can get a little bit warm when you do bung a cable in there, get some wired charging on the go. Haven't had any problems with the battery life though, I've got to say. When I first got them, battery life weren't too great, but then a month on, after plenty of use and everything, I tend to get at least 6 hours of screen on time from the Pixel 7 and the 7 Pro. But anyway, now I'm spoiling my own review, so I'm gonna shut up, just go and watch that video because it's f***ing great. Next up, Kyron says, hey Uncle Spurt, how's that MCT oil coming along? Oh yeah, is it giving you a mental boost? I hope you're not ODing on it. Bollocks, I completely forgot to even try it, mate. Sorry, this is the thing, this is why I need this MCT oil, because stuff literally just falls out of my brain about 4.5 seconds after I say it. So if I don't make like a phone calendar reminder, then it just ain't gonna happen. Yes, I'll definitely have to bung some on the old supermarket delivery list, that's for sure. At least then it means they're not just bringing me whiskey and frozen pancakes. Next up, Jason Powell says, coming to you from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Hello Jason, hope all is lovely in the Canadas right now. I've got to admit, I know absolutely bugger all about Hamilton, Ontario. So you know what, F it, I've got a little bit of time. Come with me kiddies and let's go on a voyage of discovery. Okay, I found some fun facts about Hamilton, Ontario. Fun fact number 1, the first ever Tim Hortons opened in Hamilton in 1964. Well, that is some thrilling shit right there. Hamilton apparently holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the highest number of high fives during a pre-World Cup match. Canadians high-fived their way to the record books with a staggering 7,238 high fives at the Tim Hortons Stadium. You guys really love your Tim Hortons, don't you? You know what, I think this voyage of discovery has just hit a massive off iceberg, and we should just let this segment be like Leonardo DiCaprio just slipping mercifully underneath that freezing cold surface, never to be seen again. Baz Anime says, I think you forgot about the Microsoft launch event 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I don't think I covered that in the news roundup last week, did I? Possibly because it was about as exciting as those Hamilton facts. I mean, you got, what, a new Surface Pro convertible and a new Surface laptop, both of which were essentially identical to the previous models, except slightly more powerful. I mean, Christ, technology is getting boring these days, and people wonder why I drink excessively and occasionally curl up underneath my desk and cry until my head is completely drained of moisture. But hey ho, put on a big smile, let's get on with the show. Planned in 1956 says, professional manner, you don't think your subscribers came here for that, did you? No, I think that we know each other well enough now after 130 episodes that all sort of pretense can be thoroughly discarded. Matt LS says, if you could get the Galaxy S22 for the same price as the Pixel 7, which would you choose? It'd be Pixel 7, hands down for me. I mean, they're quite closely matched in a lot of ways, including the fact they're both quite compact. Maybe the S22 is slightly more compact, actually got a slightly better hand feel. But more importantly, the Pixel 7's battery life isn't utter shit. There was a little asterisk, read the small print bit. I did review the Exynos version of the S22, not the Snapdragon model, which might be not as cack. I'm so glad that Exynos is apparently coming to an end and we're gonna get a not poo version of the S-series flagships next year. Hooray, huzzah. Next up, Stikizmar says, Booze Spurt is a show I would definitely watch. Well, on that note, plans are underfoot, under fucking something anyway. Let me just talk this bit again. Plans have been drafted to actually set up a second channel which has got bugger all to do with tech, and I can't really talk about it much at all right now, partly because it is very much still just sort of rough notes, and partly because I'm a bit of a like that. But hopefully I will have more news to share in the next sort of month or so on all of that shenanigans, so stay tuned. And with that, let's bid adieu to viewer comments for another week. But a massive thanks to everybody who slapped some stuff, some scribbles down in the comment section last week. It's been a lot of fun going through all of that. You guys are freaking awesome. Please do have a bit of tappy-tappy in the comment section down below this one. We'll get through as many of those as possible next week. And speaking of next week, let's have another Russell Grant style squint into the near future.
This is about next week.
And next week, thank Christ there actually is a big tech launch, because it's the Media Tech Summit kicking off over in San Francisco, and I will be jumping on a jumbo jet to go over there to the west coast of the States and indulge in some saucy chipset chat. But even though I will be swanning about in San Fran, TechSpert Weekly will still be happening next week, same time, same place. Not the same place because I'll be in the States, but it'll be going live at the same time, UK time, as long as I don't pass out drunk and forget to edit the bugger or anything. But I'll be shooting it on the fly, so it will look and sound even shitter than usual, so sorry. But anyway, a massive thanks for not buggering off partway through the show to go watch some decent tech content. Please do plug, subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more of this, I guess. And have yourselves a really wonderful weekend. Cheers everyone, love you.